I was in my 20s and I was injecting drugs every day. That was pretty much my life. I was also working at a needle exchange in Dunedin, and they had a nurse who would come in, it was a doctor who'd come in once a week. And so she just tested people regularly. So I didn't actually decide to go and get a test for Hep C, it was just part of the procedure. I remember it came back saying that it was positive, and I was a bit like, well, you know, shit, everyone I know's got it. It felt like par for the course, really. It was an occupational hazard, if you will, of being a drug user. I knew that you could get it through sharing needles and syringes, for example. We did have awareness that you could get it through sharing equipment, but I was always careful never to share needles and syringes, but sharing equipment, well, that was another matter. Did it all the time. A lot of the people I knew had Hep C. I'd hoped to avoid Hep C, but there was a sense of inevitability about it. So I wasn't destroyed by the diagnosis. I wasn't, you know, thrilled either, but it didn't affect anything that I continued to do. I mean, I was a very heavy drinker as well as using, and I kept on drinking and all of those things. It really was not an issue. You know, we had other shit to be worried about. Like, you know, the issue for us was getting the drugs and getting the money to get the drugs and who ripped who off and whether you were going to get arrested by the police. We had like real everyday issues to be concerned about. Hepatitis C was, you know, it was not a biggie. Then when I was in my about 28, 29, I went into rehab and I finally stopped using when I was around about 30. And it was then that Hep C really started to impact me. When you're high or when you've got drugs in your system, it can mask it all. But when you're sick, you attribute feeling bad just to the withdrawals, if you see what I mean. So I could have been really quite ill from Hep C a lot of that time, but I wouldn't have, you know, I would have put it all down to the drugs. But when I stopped using, I noticed that I was incredibly tired, that I'd have to have a nap like every afternoon, all these sorts of things that you know, it's like, you know, what's going on here? And so I really felt the impact of Hep C in my life, and also the impact of the stigma around it and not feeling able to disclose. And I didn't want to go on treatment because I didn't want to be playing around with a needle and syringe. I felt like it'd be a trigger, but also it would also be a trigger because the interferon makes you feel like shit. And it sounded very similar to heroin withdrawals. So you got a needle and syringe and you're basically giving yourself withdrawals. I thought if there's a recipe for relapse, that's it, right? And so that probably would be 10 years at least after receiving my diagnosis that I went on treatment. Yeah, it was horrible. I mean, it was really shitty. When I found out I had it, the only option was Interferon and Ribavirin. And it's a shitty treatment. Not only because it makes you feel rubbish, but there's no guarantee it's going to work. Now, you've got direct-acting antivirals, which are like, you know, pills. You don't have to inject yourself, you take a couple of pills a day, and the course can last for eight weeks or whatever, and there's minimal or no side effects, and there's like, you know, at least a 90% chance that it's going to work. So it's a bit of a no-brainer. It's not like the old days where it was a total nightmare. I was very scared, but I was, you know, I'd heard every horrendous side effect in the book, in a way. So my experience wasn't as bad as that. So I think that helped me cope. You know, really tired, lots of muscle aches and pains, feeling very dizzy. Yeah, it was rubbish. It was an achievement, you know, to go through that treatment. A real sense of getting through something and of having achieved it. And I think immediately post-treatment it was very difficult because I had a whole heap of side effects that were different and that I wasn't anticipating. That lasted about 2 months and I did start to feel better. And I did feel that I had more energy and I felt like my head had cleared a bit. Yeah, unfortunately, hepatitis C carries a huge weight of stigma. But I think hopefully things are changing a little bit. For me, it was interesting, when I had my first partner who wasn't using, after I'd stopped using, he reacted much more severely than I expected. And I also didn't tell the people I was living with, because they knew about my past drug use, but I didn't want them to think they could catch something from me. But in terms of injecting drug use, the way that society can look at it and label people is it's their whole being that defines them. And hepatitis C has somehow got wrapped up in that. So really it's about a societal change and attitude towards substance use rather than anything else, I think. I mean, you can get a test and it can be confidential. You can know. You don't have to proclaim it to the world. Try and get treatment as soon as you can.
Thanks, Magdalena, for sharing your story with us. Don't forget that Magdalena was treated under the old treatments. Today, new treatments are available. These are highly effective, don't take as long, and have few side effects. So get tested, get treated, know it, treat it, beat it.